Hello, today is Friday, March 11th, 2022. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. Does it surprise you that your ISP is collecting a ton of data about you and selling it to third parties? Maybe not, but after this podcast, you'll likely think twice about blindly accepting the terms of use of that must-have app. Today, I'm joined by Sara Crifasi, who is of Counsel, and Kevin DiLallo, a senior partner. We have so much to cover that this will be a two-part podcast, and this obviously is part one. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today.
Hey Joe, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us back on Staying Connected.
Okay, Kevin, tell us more about this story.
Sure. A few months ago, the Federal Trade Commission released a report revealing that internet service providers are collecting enormous amounts of data from their customers. They're tracking our use of online services across multiple devices, websites, and geographic locations. And they're collecting information on things like our web searches, our mobile app usage, and the content of our unencrypted text messages and emails. But it gets worse. From there, many ISPs are turning around and sharing that data with undisclosed third parties.
Wow, that is quite a finding. I am curious, though, Kevin, why would ISPs voluntarily agree to report this information? I mean, presumably they know they're doing something that will raise eyebrows.
Well, I'd say it wasn't so much done out of the goodness of their hearts as much as it was done under pressure. After some 2019 congressional hearings on potential federal data privacy legislation, the FTC announced that it would begin gathering information on ISPs' privacy policies and procedures. The agency sent specific questions to the 7 ISPs that maintain network platforms: AT&T, AT&T Mobility, Comcast, Google Fiber, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Verizon Wireless, and it gave them a month and a half to respond.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Now, I'd like to dig into this deeper. So, Sara, what is at the heart of this?
Well, Joe, most ISPs have affiliates that provide services other than internet access. Think telephony, cable or streaming video, and those smart home services like the personal assistants that we've all come to rely on, as well as alarm monitoring. And those ISPs aggregate information collected by their affiliates to compile profiles on individuals that could include some very sensitive personal information, or PI. And this comes around things like ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, economic status, religious beliefs, political affiliation, even your movements throughout the day and persons with whom you might communicate or visit, as well as other very highly personal interests. And what's more, the ISPs have admitted to storing that PI for months or even years after they needed it to provide service. So why are they collecting and keeping this information? To start, virtually all ISPs claim to store PI only as long as they need it for a business purpose. But they're free to define what that business purpose is, and this gives them virtually unfettered discretion to store PI as long as they like. In addition, these types of PI profiles are obviously extremely valuable to online advertisers and other economic actors. Think property managers, bail bondsmen, bounty hunters, and others with less than honorable intentions. So this leads us to what is known as the secondary data market, the market for selling and using consumers' personal information that is one step or more below the customer-facing app or service provider itself.
Wait, sorry. So what is the secondary data market?
It's huge and it's murky. The secondary data market is an enormous ecosystem of data brokers, advertisers, data analytics providers who buy PI that was acquired by those who actually interface directly with users, that is, ISPs and mobile app developers, and then analyze it, package it, and resell it. They're extremely sophisticated, but virtually unknown. For years, they've operated free of any regulation because they aren't the ones collecting data from users, so they don't have to disclose anything to those users. It's a brilliant business model, and the data they compile and package is super valuable to advertisers and marketers. Here's an example. Merely knowing that a particular mobile telephone number or MTN was located at certain coordinates at a particular time of day by itself doesn't seem particularly intrusive. But if you can tie that same MTN to a home address where the phone was located overnight, and then to a few e-commerce transactions or Apple Pay transactions, or maybe a trip on the subway or in an Uber, now you can use data analytics to identify the individual whose phone it is and create an accurate profile of that person's likes, dislikes, habits, and tendencies. And then, using geolocation and analytics of the motions of individual mobile devices, which, by the way, are reported by the accelerometers installed in all of our devices, marketers can place individuals together at a particular time and place. For example, a group walking together on a city street, all carrying location and motion reporting mobile devices. Pretty scary, isn't it?
That's putting it mildly. So, Joe, if you have any doubt about how creatively this online information can be put to use, consider this. First, you might recall all the news around the 2016 U.S. presidential election, when a firm called Cambridge Analytica used profile data they collected to micro-target 87 million Facebook users with political messages, many of which weren't even obviously political messages. Another marketing firm used location information to target individuals who visited family planning clinics and methadone clinics, and then sent them ads for birth control and substance abuse treatment. Can you imagine if you were keeping that part of your life secret and suddenly you began receiving ads for the very thing that you didn't want to be made public? In another case, the U.S. Department of Defense banned fitness tracking apps and devices because they can be used to track the location of military personnel and to identify the locations of secret installations. And those are just a few examples. But as disturbing as those stories are, the fact remains that the users in each case probably consented to someone's collecting and using this sensitive information as the quid pro quo for a free app, or maybe in terms of use that they never read or didn't understand. For years, U.S. data protection laws have been premised on the really flawed notion of informed consent, meaning that a data broker can collect practically any information an adult user agrees to provide and can use it in any lawful manner that the data subject agreed it may be used, even if that data subject didn't really understand what they were agreeing to in the first place.
Yeah, the recent FTC report found that almost no consumers bother to read privacy disclosures. And even if they did, the terms of use and licenses that grant these rights to data brokers are so broad that almost anything goes, meaning consumers can't do much to protect the information they transmit over these services. And even where ISPs offer users privacy options through their settings, navigating the multiple layers of settings is often confusing, time-consuming, and complicated.
Okay, I see why this is something individuals need to be aware of, but does it impact our enterprise clients? And if so, what can they do about it?
I'm glad you asked, Joe, because those are the topics for part 2 of our podcast. We hope everyone will tune in for that a few days from now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And as you just said, we will be back shortly with part 2 of this podcast. In the meantime, if you do want to talk to Sara and Kevin about your privacy concerns, please shoot them an email or give them a call. You can also contact them or me or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues if you have other ICT needs. Finally, we are always producing new content, which you can get to by subscribing to these podcasts, by checking out our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.